there was a bisexual man. I'm happily married to a woman. I just came out as a bisexual to my friends and family, always been a bisexual, and they have children. And he was just saying how there were some people who were asking if he's going to have an open marriage now that he came out as bisexual. And he was just like really shocked by that response and that inquiry. And the community, being the gay Christians in the subreddit, they're like, oh, that's just biphobia. It is this idea that I don't want to date a bisexual because it increased the chances of them cheating on me. And how can I really be secure in the idea that they're satisfied with me and not crave the other sex? And the paranoia of, oh, not only do they have the choice of the whole male population, they also have the choice of the whole female population. And they can just pick and choose what they want based on their mood. And two, yes, if they are inclined to be the type to cheat and sleep around, then sure, that is definitely a risk. But you shouldn't put that on bisexuals as a whole, because it's all up to the individual. Just because you know that one person who happens to be very promiscuous doesn't mean that this person will be too. It's all individual choice as to how they want to live their lives and their character. So there's that, biphobia. So what is bisexuality? If we're gonna talk about the Kinsey scale of sexuality that says sexuality is fluid, and most people fall in the category of bisexuality. That's the idea. And the extremes would be the heterosexuals and the gays and lesbians. Those are the extreme right and left. But everybody's in between, they're bisexual. So with that in mind, bisexuals function the same way, that they can fall anywhere in the spectrum. One bisexual might be, well, I don't really care about the gender or sex of the person. I just care about the person, and I fall in love with the person, that it doesn't really matter what they look like or what they have or whatever. Then they'd be like, okay, great. But there are some people who are just like, well, I'm bisexual, but I mostly fall in love with women, but I sometimes have sex with men. All these kinds of things, you're in a spectrum, and they define that for themselves, who they're attracted to sexually and romantically and all these kinds of things. So very complex. Humans are complex in general. So it's very individualized. So now, how does Christianity play a part? Non-affirming Christian stance regarding bisexuality would be, oh, well, you have the choice. So you made the choice to go for same sex when you can very well go with the opposite sex. So you made the choice. And in that, if you had the choice, then you should always choose the opposite sex. Otherwise, you are sinning because you made the choice. It's easy to say that because for gays, even non-affirming Christians would say, okay, you're born that way, but you're not supposed to act on it. If you act on it, it's sin. And so we're gay affirming. We're like, great, LGBTQIA, yes. Nobody's sinning. The Bible never said anything about that. You have to read the Bible in its historical context to know that the Bible doesn't speak against loving, committed, monogamous LGBTQIA relationships, okay? But bisexuals will tell you, usually, it's not like they're choosing based on gender or genitalia. It's based on who you fall for. So sex is not even an issue. And that's where biphobia comes in. Because, oh, am I enough? Because I don't have that equipment of the opposite sex. And if it's true that they just fell for you and they don't crave the opposite sex, then you're good. But then there are a lot of ways to spice things up in the bedroom if that's what you think is so important, besides love and respect and cherishing one another. But all this to say is that if you have a loving, committed, monogamous relationship with a bisexual, fear not. You don't have to be biphobic. They're dating you for you. They fell in love with you, specifically. So don't worry about the other people out there. And the fact that they're bi doesn't really change the fact that they are loyal, committed people who don't cheat, because that's just character. And their sexual orientation does not dictate how they would behave and how they would treat you. If they lack character and integrity, then yes, they might chase after whoever is out there and cheat on you, and it doesn't have anything to do with their bisexuality. That's just an unfortunate human thing that is a risk for anybody in a relationship. The risks and the chances of it happening is all the same depending on who you fell for. So let's leave the sexual orientation out of it. So the question now is, well, you're bisexual, you fell in love with the opposite sex, you got married, you had children, yada, yada, yada. And yet you have this part of you where like, well, you know, I'm still sexually attracted to or romantically attracted to the same sex. How do I have the opportunity to act on that? Well, as Christians, we will say you can't, just like anybody in the world who's already in a loving, committed, monogamous relationship. Can't act on it because acting on it would mean that you are committing adultery. It all applies regardless of your sexual orientation. So if you were married and then you just discovered one day, ooh, I discovered that I'm bisexual. And now all I can think of is my bisexuality. And that's what happens when you have a sexual awakening, right? That's all you can think about. Hoo, the world is now full of possibilities. But I'm stuck in this marriage and I want to explore my sexuality. What now? As a Christian, we would still say you have committed yourself to this person and that's the only person you are to be with, regardless of your sexual awakening. And to pursue otherwise would be carnal, would be of the flesh, would be adultery. Well, we can make it more complicated and say, well, what if, I fell out of love with this person that I'm in a loving, committed, maybe it's not even loving anymore. Whatever, boring, committed, monogamous relationship. Right? What now? What do we do? Well, one, there's always couples counseling, couples therapy. You were loving before, you could definitely move towards loving unless something horrible happened, like an abusive situation that cannot repair the marriage and all these kinds of things. But you really do need to try and work on it and not just go like, well, I have the sexual awakening and I just want to explore the world and sleep around with as many people as I can so I can discover myself. That's what people like to say, right? When they say that they are experimenting and exploring their sexuality. As Christians, we would say that is totally unnecessary and ill-advised because casual sex is the problem that the Bible is referring to in regards to sexual immorality. That and all the abusive sex cases, right? Rape, incest, pedophilia, all these kinds of things. We know that. So now, what are the implications of an open marriage or even polygamy in this case? It's very individualized and it really all comes down to your values. If you as an individual, you value your relationship with another person, regardless of their sex, then it would be hard for you to say, oh, I want to explore our relationship, sexual or otherwise, romantic or otherwise, with another person. In a Christian context, an open marriage is not even something that we would consider as okay. And this is coming from the perspective of monogamy in Christianity. And I say that specifically because there are some Christians who believe polygamy to be